I'd like to get into some of the tools we're using today. These are detachable clippers. The reason they call them detachable clippers is because the blades detach from the clippers itself. They have different settings, such as this is a 3 3/4, the 3 1/2. And you can always determine the length of the hair because of the size of the width right here of the blade. And then we have the 1 1/2 blade and the 2 blade. They go all the way down to 0 0. They go all the way short down to 0 0, which is down to the skin. So you use them much the same way as you would use the plastic guards. I'm sure everyone's used to doing this in the salon. But these have 6 teeth, 6 wide teeth, and they move too. Whereas the metal blades don't move, and they're a lot closer together. So I'm just going to demonstrate on the detachable clippers. We're going to go up and out of the hair. I'm going to comb everything down and just go right up and out. Comb it down again. And these cut through a lot thicker hair too. So if you ever have problems going through your hair with really thick hair and your clippers kind of bogged down a little bit, this will make it a lot easier to go through. Originally, these started out as animal clippers. And I think somewhere along the lines, a barber picked these up and started doing haircuts with them and found they're really great tools to use. I'm going to comb all this down on the sides as well. Just cutting up, just the same motion, just up and out. One thing you always want to remember is that this is a size 3 3/4, but it's probably equivalent to a plastic number 2. So these are always a little bit shorter than the plastic guards. Let's go around the ear here. The next clippers I'll be using are the adjustable clippers. They're adjustable because they adjust here. This is a 0 setting. Then we can go all the way to number 1 setting. The reason I like these is because they have a lot of freedom in here. We have number 1 setting, the 0 setting, and all in between there. I like to use these for clipper over comb. These clippers are a good all-around clipper. I want to talk about the combs too a little bit that we're using. Notice we have a nice flat comb here, opposed to a comb that has a ridge on it, such as this comb here. See, it has a round ridge, and the teeth are really spaced apart. And it's kind of a thick comb in diameter. So we want to work away from those, maybe something nice and flat like this here. So if we go with a nice finer tooth comb, the hair will get separated more before it gets cut. So that's why I like to use a nice fine tooth comb that's flat. We could switch to a number 2 blade. You can see the difference in metal right there. It's a smaller blade. This is probably about like a number 1 plastic blade. And we're just going to go through down here and give this a closer look, more of a taper. In the same motion, we're coming in, rolling right out there. And it's nice to have your elbows kind of close to you when you're doing this. Gives you more stability. We use these smaller blades around the ears and around the edges here. And I like to also get into some of the shears we'll be using. I like using a long shear. These are a 6 1/2-inch blade. I like to use a longer shear because you can just cut more. Just one cut, rather than going across a lot with little tiny shears like this. We can go in one big cut and just take it off. So now I'm just going across the top here, just cutting, getting a rough length. I'm not really doing any fine tuning right now. If you're doing shear over comb, we can happen just a lot quicker here. Okay, I'd like to talk about the blending shears here. These are a 40-tooth blending shear, 40 teeth. That'll make a nice smooth cut. This way you can blend out all the lines. And it's a great way to practice scissor over comb because you're cutting every other section of hair. So it's a very safe tool to use. So we're just doing the same methods, just kind of touching up what we've done before. And with hair like this, it's real thick, real coarse hair, so by using the blending shears, we could take out some of that density, but leave the length. You shouldn't rely on these scissors. This should be your kind of buffer shear, your fine-tuning shear. To get all the real length off, you want to use the clipper over comb method or the scissor over comb method. Okay, and last clipper I'm going to be using today is the trimmers. These are just for around the edges, just getting some of the fuzz off around the ears. Just turn these on. We always want to follow his natural neckline here. We don't want to dig in too much over here. We want to stay right on this line. So I'm just going to go right through here. And then around the neckline, I want to stay low. Through here. Okay, now we just kind of finish the cut. Maybe spray a little water on here. Okay, I just want to kind of conclude this cut. I took the 3.5 blade on the detachable clippers up to here. Then I went through with the number 2 blade to about here. Did that on the sides and the back as well. And then I went through with the clipper over comb method, kind of took care of that line, kind of blended everything in. And then along the top, I kind of made it choppy, digging a little bit with the shears. And then finally, we took the trimmers, the small clippers, and just took care of all the little tiny hairs that were around here, made the sideburns straight, and went around the ears. This will take care of all the little peach fuzz, little neck hairs we have. And you always have to remember to take the cape off and kind of clean up where the area around the cape too. That's an important step. This is a cut that's going to be longer on top, shorter on the sides and the back. But it's kind of a difficult cut to do because of the difference in length. We're going to have a long here, and it's going to drop down to shorter and shorter. So we need to leave the sides somewhat full. So what we're going to do is I'm going to be showing you the clipper over comb method. Okay, we're going to be starting in the back. I like to always start in the back because you can get a feel of the hair, and it's a nice centered place to start. So what we're going to do is just come in here, pull the comb out, and run our clippers straight across the hair. We're going to go up and out, just like that. Now, if you notice, I'm rubbing the clippers all the way across the comb here. So it's not just kind of coasting like this. We're going to go right against the comb and go right across. So this is going to be on the number 1 setting, which is the open setting. And the reason for that is so that the hair gets separated before it gets cut. We always want to remember to comb all the hair down. That way we can see what's happening. See if we see any lines, any choppy marks, anything like that. And when you're doing clipper over comb, one major thing to always remember is to keep your clippers on top here in the comb, not drop down here. Because if you watch this corner right here on the clippers, you see where that corner is down here. And we could leave a line right in his head, right through there. So you always want to be on top here. That'll be a little safer for you. So again, we're just going up, pulling it out. Now as we get to the top here, I pull the hair out a little bit more there. That way it'll be longer. So if you ever feel like you want to have the hair longer, don't hold the comb here and just try to hit the ends, because nothing's going to happen. You want to pull it all the way out here and then cut. So it's always resting on the comb. Your left hand's going to be doing most of the work here, and your right hand's just kind of like a machine that goes straight across here. This is a great technique because you can have so many different various lengths, rather than if you put the plastic guard on and just went up like this, you only get one length. This here, we can start out really tight down here and go longer as we go up. Always remember to comb all the hair down. If you don't comb the hair down, it's going to be a big mess. You can't tell what's happening. So you got to comb all the hair down this way. Now, as we work into the sides, remember we want to leave the top long. So if we want to leave the top long, we want to get some of this out of the way first. So we get this all out of the way. And then now the way I like to remember this is if you think of this as a saw, we're going to just cut the ear off. That'll make it real graphic for you to remember. So the teeth are on top of the ear here, And we're just going to turn this around and catch all that hair. That'll eliminate all those little tiny little hairs that sometimes stick out when we do around the ear work. So teeth are down, scoop all this up, and we'll go ahead and cut it. So same thing, teeth are down, scoop it up. We can do it over here too. And comb it down. Remember to always comb the hair down. Blending all this together. It's nice to have the hair dry when you're doing clipper over comb, because if the hair's wet, the hair will stick together a lot more. And then you're cutting big sections of hair at once, big clumps of hair. It's kind of like if you had a bunch of fabric, wad it up in a ball, and then cut it, and then open it up, it'd be a real jagged cut. But if you stretch the fabric out flat and cut it, it'd be a nice straight line. So here we see the hair fans out evenly, then we go through and cut it. Then we can bring down a section of hair from the top here. Bring this down, and just pick it up, and we just want to stay just on the edges here. We don't want to cut too much off, because we're going to leave the top long. So if we cut a lot off here, we wouldn't be able to blend it in with the top, because it'd be too short on the sides. If you notice my angle of the comb bends out a little this way, that'll leave the bangs a little longer. And that's going to be the longest part of our whole haircut. It's just in the bangs. So we can comb all this down, see what's happening. You see we have a little line right here, so we can go through and take that out a little. As we're going around the ears, I take the adjustable clippers and I put it on the 0 setting. I'm going to treat this corner just as a pencil, and I'm going to draw a line around the ear. So we're just going to draw a line right around the ear here. So if you notice, I stay very low. I don't want to go up too high here, because that'll leave a big white wall. Nobody likes that. So I'm staying low, and then I can go through this way and use the other corner, and it's a backhand motion. And just take a little bit off. Remember to stay very low. Now for the sideburns, I'm going to turn it on the number 1 setting, which is another term for it. They call it open. This is open. This is closed. So the open setting, we're just going to kind of touch the sideburns a little bit. Just kind of tighten those up a little more. So we'll go along to the other side. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're just going to comb all this back. But, you know, I'm standing in the same place here. I just turned the model. Before he was over here, and I came in with the teeth this way, picked everything up. Now I'm standing in the exact same place. Well, now the teeth are going down again. Same exact thing we're doing here. I'm just going to cut that across. Now the teeth are down again. I'm going to get some of this back hair included. I'm going to scoop all that up. And comb this down. All right, we'll take our next section here. Just going to bring this down. That's still over there. We're not going to be able to cut that. Now I'm not going to take a whole lot off of this section, just enough to kind of blend it together. So we're working just like this. If you notice, I'm leaving the bangs long, so you need somewhat of an angle happening, a downward angle here. Another thing that's nice about dry hair is the hair can flow more. It's not stuck together and falling together. So you notice that kind of how it drops together. And once again, we can have this on the number 1 setting, and we're just going to go through and just touch up the sideburn area a little bit more. Because that's always the first thing people notice that grows back, is around the ears, the sideburn, and the nape area. So we want to take that in nice and close there. Then I might go in with the detachable clippers with the size 3 3/4 setting. It's kind of a large setting. This will make this area just a little tighter and just blend a little smoother. So we're just going to go up and out. And you always want to work against the grain when you use these. If the hair grows down, you want to work up. If the hair goes sideways, you want to work against it. But sometimes by doing that, you create a new line. So we're just going to go through here and kind of touch this up a little bit, this little weight line area. So we'll do the clipper over comb method once more, right through here to kind of straighten this out. And this is a very convertible cut too. We can actually wet this down and make it look like it's short all over, because the sides and back are short. So it's something that can be worn as a short cut or as a longer cut. Now this obviously looks too long. These bangs are too long for what he has going on with the back of his hair. So what we're going to do is take some off the top, maybe a ½ inch or so. But we remember not to take too much. So we're going to start back here. And this is going to go shorter, and it's going to go longer as we go up. So this will be the longest point in the whole head. So if we keep that in mind, let's cut this as a slope, using this crown area as a pivot point. We're going to go longer as we go away from it. And pick this up and just go right across. Comb it down, this up here. Just kind of follow our guide. And when you get to this very front point in the center, we just want to maybe cut a little bit off. You know, those will be our longest point, so don't cut too much off those bangs. This cut kind of reminds me of the old movies, the 30s movies, when the guys had long hair and they kind of combed it back. But if they got in a fight or something like that, they would all kind of fall forward and it'd be longer. But you'd think they have short hair throughout the whole movie until something happens where their hair gets messed up. And you'll see how long it really is. Okay, so you notice we trimmed it just a little. It's not really short on top, but you can tell it is a little length off of it. This gives it more of a balance. It's not so long and then short looking. It's more of like more uniform now. And we want to cut this crown area. And this is going to go from short to long. So we're going to use this as a long point now. And we're going to work our way down here at this angle. Then I can go in with the trimmers and just kind of stay just on the edges here. I'd never come in, like make a line right there because for one thing, the sun doesn't shine there, so we're going to see a big long line there of light skin. So we just want to take this in a little tighter. Turn it this way. And this as well. Okay, I'd like to conclude this haircut with the clipper over comb method throughout the back here. And as we went up, we left it longer and longer and longer. That way we can have a graduation going short to long. And the sides as well. Took all this and combed it to the side so we can leave this long. Then through here we went clipper over comb, short to long. And then same on the other side here. And then we went through with the scissors and cutting this. And we stayed at this angle, this kind of angle here. That way this is short and it climbs to longer, finally longest in front. And the reason this works for his hair is because he's got nice straight hair that kind of falls. You know, this way you can wear it kind of forward. Kind of a forward look to it. You know, if he had real curly hair, it would just kind of come out this way. Nothing would really happen to it. So this can kind of flow, or he can wear it back too as well. So it's something he can just run his hands through and get ready, go for the day. It's a pretty low maintenance cut. And there you go. This next cut we're going to be doing is the flat top. This cut's been around for a long time, and it's kind of a difficult cut to do. My first flat top took me about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, but after I got the feel of it, I got used to it. There's just a few simple things you have to remember here. We want to think of a box. Think of maybe like a shoe box or something with flat corners and square edges. So you see that corner we have there. We need to leave that corner, and we need to leave the corner over here as well as the bangs. The bangs are going to be the longest part of the whole haircut. Most guys' cuts, I feel, the bang's going to be the longest. So we're going to take the sides down with the number 2 blade and then go across the top just flat. These are going to be long, and so are the corners. And right on the top crown here is going to be short. It's going to be one of the shortest pieces on the whole haircut. So then we're going to round off the back after that. So we're just going to have almost a horseshoe of hair right here. So with all of that, I'm going to get started with the number 2 blade. Okay, the clippers are going to go in a nice vertical motion, just straight up. Just like the shoebox, just like the corners. Everything's going to be parallel with the walls or parallel with the ceiling, either vertical or horizontal. So you want to just go straight up the back of the head. You see, like, the clippers just went straight up. I didn't round off the corner. So everywhere you want to go, you want to just go straight up with the clippers. If your client has fine hair, you might want to start out with maybe a 3 3/4 blade or a 3 1/2 blade. But generally, a flat top is usually a number 2 blade. Sideways. This is the easy part of the cut. This is just going up, nice vertical motion. And 3/4 of your haircut is done within 5 minutes. This part, I guess, would be a no-brainer. As long as you don't turn that corner. If you turn that corner, you lost the flat top. And if you cut off the bangs, you lost the flat top too. I'm gonna add a little bit of pomade here. There's a variety of different products you could use for this, but primarily what you want the hair to do is just stick up. Just stick all straight up, as if you stuck his head into a light socket. So everything's gonna come up straight off the head, like this, just going straight up. And if he has really fine hair, you can use hairspray, gel, and blow dryer to blow it up. But he's got pretty thick hair, so we're just gonna go stick it all straight up here. The reason we're doing this is so we can get a nice true cut on the top, because when we comb it up and cut it, we want everything to stick straight up. And sometimes you have to work harder. If he has a cowlick or something like that, you have to work harder to get that up. But the main focus is in the bangs. You want to have your bangs go nice and straight like this. Now you notice I'm using a big comb here. I don't know if it was designed for flat tops or not, but it works really well because it's a big, wide plane here. And it's nice, it's flat. It's got long, fine teeth. We can just set it on there. If you ever look down just a minute. You can set it on there and you can see how it can cover the whole area of the head. We can take it in one swoop, just cut all this off. So we're gonna cut off maybe about, I'd say, 1/2 inch to more like 1 inch on top. Now that we applied the product, we're gonna do some clipper over comb work. But remember to oil your clippers, especially if he's got product in your hair, because if he has a lot of product in the hair, the clippers are gonna bog down just a little more. So we're gonna add a little bit of oil, and we're just gonna turn the clippers on, put a few drops in there, let the oil kind of run around a little bit. Maybe move the handle up and down. That'll get the oil in there. So now I'm gonna start right here, top dead center of his head. That can be nice and short. I could almost rest the comb right on top of his head at that point. But notice the comb is never gonna be like this or like this. It's always gonna be flat. Always gonna be flat like this, or it's always gonna be flat going vertical on the sides. So this corner's gonna stay. So we're resting it on his head here. Maybe if you look down. We're just gonna run it right across there. And you're gonna be okay as long as you don't turn the corners there. You just wanna have that nice and flat on top. Now there's a flat top comb that has a little bubble in it, a little level. You stick it in there and you kind of look at the bubble and see if the level's right. And if the level's right, then the haircut should be right. But if I could suggest getting into something just as regular comb and just try to do it with your eyes. Just try to focus your eyes and train your eyes to see what's flat. That way you don't have to rely on a little bubble to give you a nice flat top. So then we can go this way too if we'd like, clipper over comb. As long as our comb's flat, notice the comb's still flat. That'll allow for the bangs to be longer. See the distance the bangs have to travel here is a lot longer, whereas this is almost rested right on his head at the back part. So if I go like this, I'd cut the bangs off and lose the flat top. So I'm gonna raise this up and go straight across. Turn this way. Now you can see we have too much hair there. So all we're gonna do is comb all this down, and then the comb is gonna be vertical. Just like that, we're never gonna cut that corner. As long as that comb's vertical, we should be okay. You comb even those bangs down, catch those bangs. Just as long as we're vertical, we're okay. Now that kind of set in there a little nicely. And if it's vertical, the head could, because it bends, it'll provide natural graduation. Because if your comb's straight like this, let me turn you this way a little bit. If your comb's straight like this hair is going to be shorter and it's going to go longer as it goes up naturally because of the bend of his head. So by doing this, combing it all down, picking it up and cutting it with a flat vertical comb, then it should go short to longer. And one other thing is when you're doing the top, going along clipper over comb like this here, you want to make sure you're not pressing too hard on the comb. Because if you do that, you're going to change the angle of everything. So you want to make sure you're just kind of gliding on top, because if you're pressing, you'll lose some of the shape. So we're just going to just rest the clippers on top there. So even we can go this way if we want, as long as that comb's flat. We can do this. Get any excess hair that's over here or over here. Just have to remember to keep those bangs. You lose those bangs, you lose the haircut. Now if you take a look at the back, look up just a little bit, there we go. Take a look at the back, we can see all this hair is too much here. And the back's the only area where we don't have to keep the corners. The back is the only place where we can actually round it off. So I'm going to go through the back at this angle now. So I'm actually turning the corner here. I'm going to round it off. So if you notice this comb angle, I'm just going to round right through here, blending it into this top dead center. And over here, it's a little bit tricky because you're going from a round corner to a flat corner. So it's a little tricky to incorporate some of it. So what I like to think of is just kind of holding the comb here, and then as you go around it, let's just make it flat, so it's flat, and then that bend starts to happen in there. Okay, as I'm rounding off the back here, this is almost the same length as this. So we want to continue this length all the way through. So what we can do is actually go back with our size 2 and just go right up here and just kind of connect this together. What we can also do at this point, by combing all this down, we can go ahead and see if we missed any hairs. We can go straight up here, see if anything's happening we missed. Maybe we want to take a little more off the back area. This is just kind of go over, check, see if we missed any loose hairs or anything. Remember, we're just going straight up here. One thing you always have to do with flat tops, because they're a symmetrical haircut, everything's straight and perfect on it, we want to look at the client head on like this, so we can make sure that everything's okay. Because sometimes our flat top might turn out like this for some reason. Maybe the client's sitting like this, kind of tired, and you give them a flat top, but then when they stand up straight, it's off to the side. So we always have to remember to kind of make sure we're on an even level here. Maybe if he sometimes crosses his legs or sits kind of different, we need to think of all those things. So, or we can look at him into the mirror. If that's our mirror right there, we can look into there and give us a look back to see if anything's happening. Maybe one side's bulkier, maybe it slants to the side. There's a whole lot of things, but just look at him head on, because if you look at him from this angle, you can't get a clear look at it. So now if we look here, we see we left that corner long. That was one of our goals. We have those bangs. Those are long in there. In this corner as well we kept, and then we rounded off the back. One thing I'm going to do on John is give him a natural neckline again. That's kind of one of my favorite things to do. A lot of clients like it too, leaving a natural neckline opposed to blocking it off. So with that, I've gone number 2, which is on here. This is number 2. I'm going to drop down to a size 1.5 and just kind of taper that in a little more. So here's our 1.5 blade. Now it doesn't look like much is being cut, but it is. Because if you want a nice clean blend, nice clean taper going down, there has to be a lot of different steps of graduation. We're going to go 2, 1.5, then 1, and then we'll go down eventually to 0. But if we're going to do the nape with the 1.5, let's go through here and touch up the sideburns a little more with the 1.5 as well. Now I'm going to go to the number 1. I never bought a number 1 blade for my detachable clippers because I consider this as being the number 1 blade, and that's 0. So I'm just going to use this to blend in just a little more here. Remember, I'm always cutting against the grain. If this wants to grow this way, I cut it this way. If it goes straight down, I cut upwards. So this is just kind of blending it in. One thing I like about the natural neckline is that you're never going to see this line. Sometimes you see that line that's there, and it's there for 3 weeks, and then you have a little fuzz down here, and then longer up here. And that line will never go away. But this way, if it grows out, it'll grow out naturally. And then maybe we'll hit the number, take the number 1 on the sideburns as well. Right through here. I used to work in a barber shop in Vista, California. We did a lot of military cuts. And there was such thing called a horseshoe flat top. And that was when you take this all the way down to the skin with the straight razor. a barber style straight razor, and you take the top down to the skin, right here down to the skin. So what you see is a definite horseshoe, but it would still be a flat top, although this is down to the skin. You still have those corners and everything. That was one style of a flat top, and I went over the slope flat top as well. And then you can do a lot of different things with flat tops, you know, leave the back long if you're into that kind of thing. Now he's got good hair for a flat top, so some flat tops can be a little more challenging, especially if they're bald. That can be a little hard. But it looks like we're okay. And there he goes. He's off. We'll see him next month. Thank you. This is how you would clean the clippers. You turn the clippers on and stick them in the blade wash, just like that. And you can see all the hairs that just jump out of there. You just want to kind of shake all the excess blade wash off of there, and then turn the clippers off. And then you can just wipe off the excess with a napkin here. Okay, this is another valuable cut that I feel I want to share with you. It's called the fade. So you're going to think of the word fade. It's going to fade from skin all the way up to hair on top. And this is going to be a skin fade, which means going all the way down to the skin. So it's going to be the same length as this beard right here, which is nothing. Size 0, if you want to call it a size. And one thing you got to keep in mind here is the color contrast. We're dealing with dark hair and really light skin. So you can notice the neckline too is really crazy, but that doesn't matter because we're going to take it all off. So right now, my clipper is on the 0 setting. This is number 1. This is 0 again. And I'm just going to go up to about right here, make a nice reference line. This line is kind of a guideline of how the whole haircut's going to be here. So you want to have a nice reference line that goes all the way across the head, all the way around the head here. If you're doing a low fade, which means low fade meaning the reference line being lower, you can kind of drop the reference line down a little bit. Come down like this with the reference line. But we're going to go straight around the head. So let's just go up here. We just want to stay right about eyebrow level right here. Kind of make sure you comb it all down. And notice I'm working upward like this. I'm not going in and digging like this and going down. If I did that, it'd be a much harder line to fade out, because eventually we're going to fade this line out. There's going to be no lines at all in the fade. Notice I'm rocking it out just a little bit here as I go to the top, just like that. That'll kind of make the line a little easier to blend out, because all this is a guideline. This is just to see what's happening here. Okay, and then you want to maybe look into the mirror and then spin your client around, all the way around here, and spin them back. Make sure that line doesn't droop down too much on one side. We'll make that line go nice all the way around, but again, we're going to fade it out, so it doesn't have to be a perfectly straight line all the way around. Now I have the number 2 blade, and I'm just going to go up and make a new line. So what's happening here is we have short, medium, long. And I'm going to go through there and tighten this up just a little bit more. But you see the new line being created up here. That's our new reference line. So if we have maybe 1 inch right here, we should do the same on both sides and in the back. So we want to do 1 inch on this side and 1 inch on the other side as well. This is a haircut that's popular with athletes or just anyone that hates to fuss and bother their hair but is kind of bored of a shaved head. Because this is like a shaved head, but only has a little more style to it. There's our second line. Now I'm going to switch up to the 3 3/4 blade. This is the longest metal blade I've ever seen. And you can see how wide that is. That's how the length of the hair is going to be. So we just put that on there. And we're just going to kind of knock this line out a little bit. And if you're going to leave the top long, make the reference line low. Because if you have a long hair on top, it's going to take a lot more steps to go down to 0. So if you want the top short, you can make the line wherever you want. It could be a low line, it could be a high line. But just if you have a really high line and long hair on top, it's going to kind of look like Kid and Play, kind of a real high look, you know, and tight on the sides there. And then we pay attention to this cowlick, the swirl. It kind of comes this way. We want to work against it. We're taking all that off. And we have this coming this way. We'll just kind of knock that off too. See, I'm always working against the grain. I comb it this way and cut against it. Now I kind of see how that fades into the top. But it's still not totally faded because we can still see that line. But we can see it kind of blends a little better now. So now I know I said I hated the plastic guards that you attach onto your clippers, but in a few cases I like them. And the only two I ever use are the number one plastic guard. I use this a lot, especially on fades, because you can put it on the adjustable clippers, which are right here. You can put them on the adjustable clippers, and then you have the number 1 setting there and anywhere in between because you can adjust it. And also it's kind of small and it's a little bit flexible. But be careful, because if they pop off, you go right down to the skin. That's the reason I don't like the plastic attachments. So we'll put it on there again, make sure it's secure. And it looks like we're ready to go here. But the top, I'm going to use the number 4. Okay, so now I'm just going to go over his head, just with number 4, going against the grain. And we're just taking this off. Don't worry about the corners, we're going to cut those off. And you comb this way and cut against it. Those are maybe going to cut against. But do you see how there's straggly hairs here and there? That's what I don't like about the plastic attachments. It just doesn't give a nice smooth cut. A lot of the times you have to go over, with the plastic attachments, you have to go over so many times because they don't get it all the way cut. So they're not a very precise tool. That's why I kind of lean away from them. So now I'm going to switch back to the 3 3/4 again. And I'm just going to go through and fade this in a little bit. And I know everyone's probably staring at this piece right here right now, so let me get that. Unless you want to call them alfalfa, which is not the case here. So what I meant by going over it one more time was kind of just going over it with clipper over comb, kind of taking care of those loose ends and blending together a little bit more. If we get the top the length that we want it, we know exactly that we have to go from 1/2 inch down to 0. Okay, now that we're at this stage, I think I want to go in with the 1 1/2 blade to kind of blend out this line to start with. So here's the number 1, the 1 1/2. If you notice a great difference between the 3 3/4 and the 1 1/2 blade, the 1 1/2 blade is a lot skinnier than the 3 3/4, so therefore it's going to be a lot shorter. Here we go, we put them on just like this here, and we're ready to go. Now if you notice, I'm kind of using a rocking motion here. This peels off like this. That means that this hair will be longer than the hair down here because I'm not cutting that hair, but I am cutting the hair down here. So this is the part, when I was watching people do fades all the time, I was always trying to wonder, well, what are they doing? It just looks like they're scrubbing their head or they're trying to, I never could figure it out. It didn't look like they were cutting any hair, but if you notice, the hair is getting cut and that line is becoming more and more faint. Maybe I'm putting in a new line right here, but I can blend that out just as well. So it's that rocking motion, leaning it mostly on the heel of the blade. So we're coming out like this. And the blades are always going to be different for whosever hair you're doing. If he has fine hair, you might use longer blades. If he wants a shadow fade meaning this is longer, like maybe a 5 o'clock shadow length right here, rather than skin, you might use longer blades. But for this haircut, I'm using a 1 1/2 right here, and this is maybe a 2, and this is a 4. See, that color contrast is a difficult thing to think about because if you make any mistakes up here, if you make a hole right here or anything, somehow gouge that, that light skin's going to shine through like a flashlight. So you got to watch that. If he has really light hair, light skin, then the fade is easy. Or dark hair, dark skin, the fade's easy. But this color contrast will throw you off. But it's kind of nice to cut hair like this because then you can notice it'll make you work harder because you're trying to blend the colors together. And I think that's great practice too. So now I'm going back in with the two blade. Going back in with the two blade right here. I'm just going to touch that line up I just made. I just put a line in there with the 1.5, so I'm going to take that out right now. And now is when I use the plastic number 1. So I'm putting it on the 0 setting with the plastic number 1. And it's the same motion. We're just rocking it. I don't know if you can actually hear the hair being cut, but it doesn't look like much is happening, but we're actually fading out that line a little bit more. And there's so many different variations of the fade. There's the shadow fade, the skin fade, high and tight, which is the more of the military look when it's really high up here. You just have a little bit of hair on top. I'm going to go ahead and take this off. Now I'm using the number 1, but I'll probably back it off just a little bit, so it might be in the middle of 0 and 1. And at this point, I'm going to switch my comb to a small brush. This brush not only can get all those little small hairs and comb it down, but it picks up the loose hairs that you've already cut. And sometimes those loose hairs can throw you off because you think, well, there's hair right there, and you try cutting it, but it's actually hair that's already on the head, so we're just going to use the brush to take those off. Do you see there's the hair? And we can take it off. And sometimes this can be a difficult cut if you're doing someone's hair and they have the big ridge back here and you have to get inside there and kind of cut some of that ridge out. Now that we're done with that, I'd like to go over again with the size 2 and just see if there's any hairs that need to be cut. It seems like we're doing okay. I just kind of do this just to go over it once more, just to see. And I can go with the 1.5 once again. Just kind of glide along, make sure there's no heavy spots in there. We'll go back again with the 3 3/4 blade. See if there's anything up here. Turn around. And you know, at this point again, you can just kind of see what you want. Maybe you see a heavy spot or a dark spot you think might need to be cut a little more. Go ahead and cut it some more. And now the final trick is we're going to take the trimmers. Now these are equivalent to the triple aught, 4-0 or 3-0. These are all the way down to the skin. The next step from here would be like a Bic razor, something that would just shave all the way to the skin. But we're going to stay low with this, and we're just going to go through here. This is just going to make it just a little tighter for us. And the sideburns as well, we're just going to stay low. Because we want this to graduate. We want this to go from 0 to 1 to 1.5 to 2, 3.5 up to 4. Just going to blend together some of this a little bit more with the blending shears, the 40 tooth. Once again, we're just going to just touch up the ends here. Not going to take much. If we're going to see a heavy line where there was a line, maybe through here there was a line, so we just might want to just touch that area just a little more. But remember to stay on the tips. You don't want to go too much. And over here in the back, we see his cowlick goes this way. So we're going to come at it this way here. Just work against it. Cut some of that down. Maybe over here as well. I'll turn you this way. Now this grows forward, so we're going to come at it this way. And all we're doing is just touching this just a little bit. And if you notice, in the front here, he's got kind of a cowlick that jumps this way, kind of falls forward. So what I'm going to do is kind of compensate a little bit by cutting some of these guys, some of these hairs right here down a little bit. You can't really do enough of it with the blending shears. So I'm going to go back with the regular shears and go through here and just kind of hit that a little bit. And that would kind of give us a little more symmetrical look to it. Because you wouldn't want a big piece of hair coming all the way down here. This is a great way to do the top. If you have them look down just like this, it'll be just like doing scissor over comb on the back of the head. I suggest starting out with somebody who wants to shave their head. You know, like, I want to shave my head completely bald. Well, then just practice the fade. Then you can always shave their head. Okay, this cut that I'm doing is going to be a clean cut, but it's not going to be boring or conservative. It's going to be short around the sides and back. We're going to leave a natural neckline, leave a taper in the back. And the top's going to be going in different directions, kind of loose, kind of rough and choppy. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to be using the razor. It's kind of a fun technique. We're just going to pick up the hair and just cut through like this. Well, what we want to do, one secret here is that we want to leave those corners long on the edges. We're going to leave the corners, we're going to leave the bangs. Kind of think of a flat top that's grown out and a little bit choppy. So that's what we're going to do. But first, I like to start in the back, like always. And I'm going to use the detachable clippers, which are right here. And I'm going to put the large blade on, the 3 3/4 blade. And it's just going to be up and off the top of the hair. The thing I like about the detachable clippers is that they provide so much speed and accuracy. And I'm not even trying at all. There's no really thought involved. You just kind of push it up and go straight across here. And you can see how smooth that lines up. First swipe. You don't have to go over it 10 times. It's just going to be nice and clear. Let me just run this right across the sideburns and straight up. That'll ensure that the sideburns are the same length as the top. Okay, now that we have the sides and back pretty much the length that we want, I'm going to do a little scissor over comb on this crown area right here. Now, since we're thinking of a flat top that's grown out and kind of choppy and rough, let's keep our comb nice and vertical, just like this. We can go ahead and cut. But if you think about it, we want to have it nice and choppy and kind of rough, so we can go in this way and point cut. So if we go in there and point cut just like this, we're still having the comb vertical, but it's a choppy kind of cut rather than a real smooth cut. So it doesn't have to be totally perfect on the sides here.